All right, guys, it's Paul Singh, the Market Speculator with bullsonwallstreet.com. Today, we're going to talk about end of the year markups, December seasonality, and the semiconductor sector. Let's take a look at the semiconductor sector. I have the chart going back to January 3rd, first day of the trading year. Semiconductors were at 72. And now we are at 105. So this has been a huge run in semiconductors. And if we look at some of these stocks, they've been even bigger runs than what the sector is showing. So we want to be watching semiconductors to go into the end of the year because of end of the year markups. And let's talk about that. I'm going to review what I talked about in last week's webinar. We had a fantastic turnout. We went over December seasonality and what areas to watch. Before we get into that, really quick, all of my trades in the swing report you get alerted to. Black Friday, we have a 30% off deal right now, and the annual plan is already monthly, so it's only $600, and it's going to be 30% off that. So if you check out, use that code Black Friday, and you can start now, even though it's not supposed to go into effect until Black Friday. All right, let's get to what we talked about in the webinar. And really quickly here, we went over December seasonality. And basically what tends to happen is we have a strong month. That doesn't mean you buy in December and end at the end of the year. There'll be a spot where it becomes really clear. We saw last year, that spot was after the big initial dip and then the run. And that's where you could have got in. December tends to be the second best month of the year, up an average of almost 2% over a 62-year period. And then we tend to have end of the year markups. And what happens is a client of an institution or a hedge fund is going to say, hey, semiconductors have been on fire. Why aren't you in them? So even if an institution has not traded this area, by the end of the year, they're going to be scrambling to get in so they can show that client we are in this area. And semiconductors is a good example of that. So we're going to key in on semiconductors. Now in the webinar, I'm going to provide you with a link so you can review it. In the webinar, I went over 33 different stocks in different areas where we could see markups. So go ahead and check that out. You've got the stocks right here. Now we're going to go into semiconductors specifically. Now there's a couple of things you can do. One, you can buy the index. Now I don't use the underlying because there's not enough volatility. You see we had 25% move in for the year, maybe a little more, a little more than 75 to 25%. But if we look at SOX L, the triple leveraged, during that same period, it's gone from 57 to 170. That's 200% move. So I trade these leveraged ETFs. So that's one thing you can do. Just trade the leveraged ETF. Now, if you don't want to do that and you want to go to stocks, there are plenty of good stocks we can watch. We've got NVIDIA. And in terms of setup to enter, usually we pick a stock and then we talk about the setup triggers. The only thing I'm going to say is watch for the December pullback. And when we get that pullback, make sure the market is bouncing. And at that point, you can get into one of these semiconductors. So that's essentially going to be the trigger. And we're thinking overall market rather than stock specific. But we've got NVIDIA here, which has made a huge run. And you can see some circles and some spots that I've already traded. This will essentially be the 5th time if I add NVIDIA again. And it's run from about the upper 90s all the way to 215. So over 100% move, beating the index SMH by a big margin. So NVIDIA, you can't go wrong with that one. OLED, another huge run, 58 up to 184. So this is actually keeping pace or even going faster than the leveraged ETF and beating NVIDIA as well. Very extended right now, but this thing could still go higher. AMD, which has been lagging big time. But when it does make its runs, it tends to make them pretty quickly. So I'm going to throw that on the list. It's probably not one I'm going to trade, but everybody watches this, so I thought I'd throw that on. Another good one is ESIO. This thing has run from about 6 to 26. So again, moving faster than the index, moving faster than the leveraged ETF, and moving faster than NVIDIA. So a really good candidate here with ESIO, a lower float. That's why it tends to move very fast, but you'll have to be careful trading this one as well. And finally, AAOI, this one's been interesting. in the sense that it made a big run, but then had a few bad earnings and now is recovering. These type of stocks, if they do start to run, they could really bounce. So again, the pattern doesn't look great, but maybe if you want to mix it up and spread your money out between two semiconductors, you could go with something like OLED, the big trend, and then go also with one of these beaten down ones that could potentially run. So that's 5 different stocks and an index. So 6 things to watch going into the end of the year. That's NVIDIA, AAOI, OLED, AMD, ESIO, and then the ETF SOXL. And remember, wait for that December pullback. And once the pullback is over, that's when we're going to jump into one of these areas here. And remember, guys, the swing trade alerts, again, I alert you to my trades. You get the morning videos. We have the focus list every day. There's a few things we're watching very closely, and I'll give you a sneak peek. We're watching LABU today. Cross the 9 EMA. We already traded it once in here. Now, if it crosses the 9 EMA, we're going to get back in, and I will send out a trade alert. Maybe that happens today. Maybe it happens tomorrow. And we've got about 5 or 6 other stocks with very specific triggers that we're watching over the next couple of days. If you're interested, just try it for a month. If not, the discount, you get 50% just for signing. And then remember, Black Friday, you get another 30%. So it's dirt cheap right now. All right, guys, I'll see you guys next week. Unless you're a member, then I'll see you tomorrow morning.